Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Equinety Podcast. We're swinging back out to Texas. We've got Ann Jones on the podcast this week. Ann, welcome to the Team Equinety Podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And be here for a second time, mind you. So I think it was right at a year when you were on before.
Yes, I think it's been a year and still love this. Can't say enough good stuff about this product.
Yeah, that's great. And I tell you, one of the big reasons I wanted to have you back on is this particular horse. We're going to talk about two horses here. The one horse, which is why we had you on the first time, and I want to go through the history for those that are tuning in for the first time that hadn't heard this story. When you sent me the videos, which it was a before and after video, and the first video, and I'm like, and it was very, very short. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't continue to watch this. And I'm going to talk, it was only seconds long, but I'm like, it was horrifying just seeing this horse trying to walk. And then you tried the product, and then 30 days later, I didn't even know if it was the same horse or not. It was that much of a change. So yeah. I want to talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, he was, after that 30 days, I would almost cry going out there to feed him because, as you could see in that video, it took him forever to walk just a couple of feet.
Yeah.
And then I almost got kicked when I wasn't prepared for his burst of energy when I was filming after that 30 days. And I could feel the wind go past me when he took off running.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So give us a little history on this horse. How did you get him? What was going on, and how did he get into this situation? Was it a mystery lameness kind of a thing, or?
Yeah, it really is. I've had vets look at him, and they just no real good answer. His history, I don't know if everyone remembers it, but down here we remember the Hurricane Katrina, and then right after that was Rita. Well, in Mississippi, it got hit really bad, and there was a trailer load of horses that came through, and they were going to slaughter. And a friend of mine that was actually the farrier's wife saw this horse and the bloodline and told the people at the feed store about it. And I just happened to be at the feed store that day. And, you know, I rescue animals, and I'm just, oh no, I can't let that horse go. I mean, he's championship bloodline. So I go look at him, and he was 3, I think. And he was skinnier than my yearling, and he got fungus spots all over him. And, you know, they had just left him out there in the pasture, and there's no telling what he went through. But we got him cleaned up and got the wounds healed, and now he's fat and happy. But he always had some issues. He was a little bit spooky, and his feet were just never really good. So I ended up not being able to show him because his feet, he wouldn't stay sound. And of course, this was 15 years ago that I got him, and he would be good for a little while, and then he'd get bad again, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And so at the point where I saw this Equinety ad on Facebook, and I'm like, you know, that I don't know. I've been burnt by stuff on Facebook, and everyone needs to be careful when they purchase stuff online anyway. But this, I'm going to give it a try. I've tried everything else. I literally have tried anything that I could find, and vets and farriers are trying to tell me what to do. So took a chance, went ahead and ordered this. And I did the videos. It suggests taking videos. And I thought I want to do that so that I will have, you know, so that I can go back and look. I might think, oh yeah, he looks a little bit better. But then if you see the video, you can see, yeah, he's a lot better. I mean, I did it at before I started at 7 days, 15 days, and 30 days. And each time, was a big difference. But I promise you, after 3 days on this, I could tell a difference. He was walking better. And then by the time, I couldn't wait to video that on that 30 days. And I'm telling you, I was standing out there in the pasture with him and getting ready. Well, no, I don't think I even had my phone ready. And he just took off. And I'm like, oh, man, I've got to get my phone. Where's my phone? I've got to record this.
Yeah.
And took off. And it was a really nice day, crisp fall day. And all the other horses were running. And he just took off bucking and running down the fence line with the other horses. And, that alone almost made me cry. So it was just a remarkable transformation.
Yeah. And I tell you, when I saw the video, the first one, and at this podcast at teamequinety.com, we'll have this podcast hosted there as well as other places. But on our website, just below the transcription of this podcast, I'm going to post the video that's the before and after video. And when you see the before, I mean, it is like he is walking on some eggshells. It's even worse than that, I think. I mean, just imagine seeing that every day when you go feed. Yeah. I mean, we thought we were about to think that we were going to have to put him down. It was so bad. Yeah, and I'm sure the frustration was at an all-time high, too. And, you don't know what's going on. Nobody seems to have any answers. And who knows how much money, you're spending trying to figure out a solution for everything going on. Right. Yeah. And so in day 3, you said you noticed in 3 days, just using the Equinety Horse XL is what you were using, which, by the way, is 100% pure amino acids, and it's specifically designed to give the body what it needs to help repair itself from the cellular level by releasing hormones from the pituitary gland. So when this happens, when the hormones are released, the body sends its own hormones to its own problem areas, and that's why it helps in so many situations. And we've had more testimonials and positive feedback from mystery lameness than I can even count. But it starts working within hours. And so it makes sense when you said you notice a difference in 3 days. What exactly did you start noticing within 3 days?
Well, like I said before, it would take him a couple of minutes just to walk 5 feet. And it was, like you said, like walking on eggshells, like he was walking on gravel. And you know how you're walking out in the sand and it's really hot and you take really baby steps?
Yes.
Well, that's the way he was walking. Like he didn't want to put any pressure on those front feet. Well, in 3 days, he was walking. It was slow, but it was faster. He didn't look as tender-footed. Right. He was going ahead and putting his weight on his hooves and walking. It was just, a little bit slower than normal.
Yep.
But you could tell he was not in as much pain because he was actually putting weight on those feet.
Yeah. And I tell you, the 30-day video, looks like a completely different horse. Like, all is great. I have no issues. And so and this was a year ago. So how's he doing today after being on the Equinety for a year?
He has not been lame one day. Seriously. He's still running and bucking. And after that 30 days, I actually, right before I had him started, the farrier was supposed to come, and I said, just skip him because I don't think you can pick up a foot and have him balance on the other 3 feet. So let's just not do him. So when he came back, when he was due again, I showed him the before video. I said, you remember how he looked? And he said, yeah, when I drove up, he didn't look like that. He was running. And then I showed him the 30-day video. And he said, yeah, that's what he looks like now. What are you doing? What are you using? Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was very impressed.
Yeah. And I think, too, for those tuning in, we have a lot of people that, they have an issue with the horse. They're looking for something. And, in your case, you tried everything that you knew to try. You're getting advice from everybody that you knew to get advice from. Nothing seemed to be working. And, I always tell people the Equinety Horse XL, it's not a miracle supplement, but it sure has done some miraculous things through the years. And, the odds of it working are so high that it is worth giving it a try. I mean, the large tub is $99.99. There's 100 servings in there, so it's $1 a day. There's no loading dose. and there's no fillers, no sugars, no starches. And like I said before, it starts working right away. And the point I want to make here is, if you are dealing with an issue and you're trying to find something to help your horse, this product isn't, I'll say it like this. It's unique in the fact that it doesn't fall into a specific supplement category. So in other words, it's not a joint supplement, hoof supplement, shiny coat supplement, muscle building, and even the performance horse world. It doesn't fit into any specific category. What makes it unique is it's given the body what it needs to release its own hormones, and then the body is able to use its own hormones to send to its own problem area. So it's going to customize to the horse's needs. But the important point here is, don't just purchase the product and use it until your horse is better. Don't use it for the specific problem. You want to use it as an everyday for the rest of the horse's life, because especially, unless your horse is out on wild free range grass, they're not getting the right amount of amino acids, among other things, but specifically the amino acids. So it's something that you want to give every day, long term, which also leads us into the second horse, which is your show horse. And you started using this as a kind of a preventative. Really, is that why you started on the second horse?
Yeah. He has arthritis, and he's since he was about 3, and so I have to get his hocks injected, and he's very high maintenance, and I put him through a lot and showing him so much since he was so young, and he's 17 now. We just came back from the AQHA World Championship show, and he did not have to have any injections at the show. Sometimes I would have to do just to touch up at the show. But we made the semifinals in one class, finals in another class. And one of my classes, he has to make really tight turns at the trot, and that's usually where his problem shows up. But, I made the semifinals, and they check that kind of stuff pretty closely. So I'm believing that my action, preventative action with him is really making a difference. I started using it with him probably 8 months ago, because I thought, it can't hurt, and
right.
It did such an improvement with that other horse. Let's see what it does with this one. And I took him to the vet just to get a checkup in October, and to go ahead and do the injections just to be safe. And the vet said, this horse, he's great. You don't need to retire him. I was planning on retiring him. I still haven't made that decision. I don't know. It's just a day-to-day thing, whether I want to keep showing him. But he's doing so great. The vet said, you don't need to quit showing this horse. There's nothing wrong. He's great. He's at his prime, keep showing him. So,
now, how many years have you been, from the maintenance standpoint, from injections? How many years have you had to do that?
Oh, probably since he was 10. So 7 years. Yeah. And now when I was at the World Show, when I'm at a show, any show, I go ahead and give him a dose in the morning and a dose at night, just because he's working harder than he is at home. I don't know if that helps any, but I know it can't hurt. And, when he's being worked hard at a show, I want to give him every edge we can.
Sure.
And I go ahead and do 2 doses when I'm at a show.
Now, I'll give you a little bit of the science. And for those of you tuning in, 1 scoop versus 2 scoops. Now, it's not a loading dose, but here's what happens internally. When you give a scoop of the Equinety Horse XL, which, by the way, is only 5.2 grams, it's like a teaspoon, not very much at all. But it's based on the size of the pituitary gland, not on the size of the animal. So whether it's a tiny mini or a draft horse or anything in between, they all get the same dose, which is the 5.2 grams. So when you give a scoop in the morning, as an example, it's absorbed very rapidly, and those hormones are released. And those hormones have a 23.5-hour life cycle. So that's why you give the product every day. So if you give a scoop in the morning, by the time you give a scoop the following morning, the hormone levels are back to where they would normally be for that age of a horse, which is why you give it every day. And it works perfectly fine in the vast majority of all situations. What we always recommend for working performance horses, show horses, or if you have one that's injured and you're trying to help recover from an injury, if you give a scoop in the morning and a scoop in the evening, what that's going to do is help keep the hormone levels elevated, and it just helps promote faster recovery. And so we have a lot of people in the show world, they swear by the 2 scoops because it just really helps with that recovery, stamina, focus. They haul better. Just their overall being is better because you're helping the body to repair. So that was a good call on your part, doing the 2 scoops when you're showing. What I find fascinating with this second horse story is the years that you were having to inject and the maintenance and everything else, and then you started the Equinety 10 months ago, and you haven't had to inject at all. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And that's something that we hear all the time. And again, it's not a miracle supplement. It's not the end all be all. And it sounds too good to be true, especially if you've tried a lot of things and you've been around for a while. But that's one reason why I started this podcast, is because it were stories like this. And I wanted a way to capture these stories and get them out. So if you're dealing with, something similar, then here's just an example, or many, many examples. And so we have a lot of people in the performance world that are either able to drastically reduce and sometimes stop the injections when they're using the Equinety Horse XL. But it all depends on the situation and the severity of what's going on in those joints. That's just one example. And then you get into the hoof quality and thicker sole depth. And, it gives your farrier more to work with in a shorter amount of time. And, it's just really, really amazing. So with this particular show horse, and you're in the in the Western Riding and Trail. So when you went and competed, how many horses were you competing against?
In trail, there were 99, and that's what I made semifinals. So I was top 30 in that. And in Western Riding, I think there were 35, and I was in the top 15 of that.
Nice. And how many years have you been contemplating retiring this horse?
3. I have his half brother that I really need to start showing, and I am preparing to do that, but it's just hard to give up a trained horse when you're at level and you're not going to be there again for a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty remarkable. I mean, for a horse that you're planning on retiring, and then the vet says, "Don't retire this horse. He's doing great."
Yeah,
kind of might mess up your plans there for a while.
It messes up my plans. Yeah. So I could still, I'm already planning to show him in January, so it doesn't look like he's going to retire this year.
Oh man, well, that's funny. Oh goodness. Well, I tell you what, I really appreciate you taking the time to share both of these stories and having you back on again. It's great to hear Fancy is doing awesome after all of the things that he was going through a year ago, and still doing great today. So if there's anybody that's tuning in and they're thinking to themselves, I've heard about this, but it sounds too good to be true, what advice or feedback would you have to get them to maybe try the product?
I would say if you have any problems that you're thinking about, you need to try a supplement, just try it. Just try it for 30 days and make sure you take videos so you'll know that it's not just in your imagination that the horse is getting better, but just give it a try. And you really don't have anything to lose because it's not going to hurt the horse. Yep. It can only help. And I tell everyone that I know to try it if they have any kind of problem, because I tell them my success story and show them the video, and they're just really impressed. It's a very good product.
Yeah. Well, and then not only if you're having issues with your horse, but we do have a lot of people, just as you're doing with your show horse, using it as a preventative, and then you've seen benefits in that aspect too. So, when you can use it as a preventative, then you're keeping those cells and everything inside working at optimal levels. So, if there is an injury or potential for one, then maybe it's not as severe, or they're able to get back a lot faster as well. So,
right.
Yeah.
Our show horses, they are put through a lot, and they're not as sturdy as they were many, many years ago.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. They have a lot of issues. So, I mean, even if you have a horse that you ride a lot even if it's not a show horse, just use it as a preventative, because their bones and insides, they're not as sturdy as you would think. An animal that size,
Yep.
they do have a lot of issues. And so this is just, even if you don't have a problem, they're getting on up there in age. It's just a good idea to start preventing problems.
Absolutely. So, well, Ann Jones out of Texas, thank you so much for taking this time to share your stories here on the Team Equinety podcast.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad to get this news out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.